So today, we're going to dive into Richard Wright's Big Black Good Man. It's this incredibly intense short story that traps you right inside the mind of a man whose deep-seated prejudice is about to have a head-on collision with a really shocking reality. It's a masterclass in psychological tension, and it perfectly explores that huge, sometimes scary gap between what we think we see and what's actually real.
First up, let's meet our guy, Olaf Jensen. He's a night porter at a hotel in Copenhagen. He's getting close to 60, and he is just perfectly happy in his little, predictable world. You know, he's the kind of guy who thinks he's seen it all and he's cool with all of it. But, as we're about to find out, that quiet little world is a lot more fragile than he thinks.
So, this guy Olaf, he's really proud of how tolerant he thinks he is. He used to be a sailor, speaks a few languages, and he's got this firm belief that he accepts everyone. As the story says, all comers, blacks, yellows, whites, and browns. This whole idea is like the foundation of who he thinks he is.
And then, bam, a guest walks in. A man so huge, so physically imposing, that Olaf's entire comfortable reality, that whole carefully built self-image of tolerance, just shatters in a single moment.
Okay, this is where we get to the absolute heart of the story. Because everything that happens next, the entire conflict, unfolds completely through Olaf's terrified and, as we're going to find out, deeply unreliable point of view. We are locked inside his head for the whole ride. Just look at how fast his brain flips that switch, right? He immediately dehumanizes this man, who we find out later is named Jim. He doesn't see a person anymore, he sees a black mass, a thing, a brooding black vision. This is prejudice, live and in action.
And this right here, this gets to the absolute source of his terror. It's not just some abstract prejudice. It's a deep, personal crisis of masculinity. Jim's sheer size makes Olaf feel, in his own words, puny, tiny, and weak. He feels insulted by Jim's presence. His fear is all about him.
So for 6 nights, this tension is just building and building, and then it all comes to a head. Jim is about to check out. He walks up to Olaf, and he does something that, from Olaf's point of view, is the ultimate, terrifying act of aggression.
In this moment, Olaf is 100% convinced that this black beast, which is what he's thinking, is about to murder him. I mean, he is paralyzed with fear, totally loses control, and is completely certain that all of his worst, most prejudiced fears are coming true right then and there. Okay, so what happens next? Well, that one terrifying, totally misunderstood moment ends up poisoning Olaf's mind for an entire year.
Olaf becomes absolutely consumed by this really dark revenge fantasy. He obsesses over this incredibly graphic image of Jim dying at sea, his body being eaten by a great white shark. It's pretty grim stuff.
And you gotta understand, this isn't just some random nightmare. That white shark is a really powerful symbol. It represents this violent, racialized revenge that Olaf, feeling so small and weak himself, can only dream about. It's the ugly, hateful core that was hiding just beneath his tolerant surface all along.
So a whole year goes by. The fantasy is kind of faded, but that memory of shame and terror is still there. And then, Jim returns. The story's central mystery is about to be solved in the most unexpected way possible.
The second Olaf sees Jim walk through that door, his mind snaps right back to that fear. He decides then and there, if this man comes near me, I'm pulling a gun from my desk, and I'm gonna shoot him. He is bracing himself for a final, deadly showdown.
So Olaf's hand is literally on his gun, ready to end it, and Jim does the exact same thing again. He circles a neck with his giant fingers. But this time, it's not Olaf's neck. It's the collar of a brand new shirt. And he just holds it up and exclaims, "A perfect fit!"
And then Jim pulls out not 1, but 6 of these shirts from his bag. 6 brand new, high-quality nylon shirts. So what is going on here? What on earth could 6 shirts possibly mean?
And here it is, the big twist. That so-called assault was never an assault at all. Jim was just measuring Olaf's neck for a gift. The one act that sparked a full year of hateful, violent fantasies was actually an act of gratitude. It was a thank you, with 1 shirt for each night.
All right, now that we know the incredible truth, we can finally step back and really appreciate the brilliant way Richard Wright put us right inside Olaf's prejudiced mind, making us see what he sees.
The whole story is built on this really powerful literary tool, situational irony. It's basically when the exact opposite of what you expect to happen happens. Olaf is bracing for a violent death, and instead, he gets a generous gift. That massive gap, that chasm between expectation and reality, is what drives the entire story.
Wright also uses Olaf's perspective to perfectly critique this idea known as the white gaze. We are forced to see Jim only as Olaf sees him, as a monster. And then, by revealing Jim as just a kind, simple guy, Wright shows us just how absurd and dehumanizing that prejudice lens really is. It's such a powerful reminder of how our own internal biases can make us get things so wrong.
This table just lays it all out so clearly, doesn't it? On one side, you've got Olaf's fearful perception, and on the other, the simple human reality. Jim's hands weren't a weapon. They were basically a tape measure. And that gun? It wasn't for self-defense. It was for a murder that was happening entirely inside Olaf's own head.
So when you boil it all down, what's the big takeaway? Why does this story, written decades ago, still feel so incredibly relevant and important today?
Well, it all comes together in this final exchange. Olaf finally gets it, he sees the truth, and he calls Jim a big black good man. And Jim's reply? Daddy-o, drop dead. It's just a playful piece of American slang. It shows he never had any bad intentions at all. He was just a friendly guy, totally clueless about the year of tarot he accidentally inspired.
And that's really the core message here. The story is this powerful, timeless warning. It shows us how our own biases, our own fears, and our insecurities can literally build a monster out of nothing, completely hiding the real person who's standing right in front of us.
And that leaves us with this final, really important question. Richard Wright forces us to look in the mirror and ask, what fears are shaping our reality? And how many of the monsters we think we see out there are just people we haven't taken the time to truly understand?